Michelle, just the usual struggle with the technology. So good morning, everyone. This presentation aims to provide insights for governing innovative reef interventions by drawing on the emerging technology experience. So the context of this presentation, well, let me see if I can change my slide. So the context for this presentation is a shift in paradigm in the management and conservation of coral reefs. We used to use conventional management interventions to address conventional threats, and policy and regulatory frameworks in this context were very much adequate. Now, in contrast, we now have the reef facing unconventional threats, namely climate change, which requires equally unconventional management interventions, such as those being considered as part of many reef restoration and adaptation initiatives around the world. So from a regulatory perspective, the problem here is that the policy and regulatory frameworks developed previously to address conventional intervention threats may not be entirely adequate to address unconventional interventions. So this raises an important question of how to regulate and more broadly govern such unconventional interventions. So these are examples of what we refer here as unconventional interventions or innovative interventions. They are being considered, as I said, in many parts of the world, including in the GBR through the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program. So we realized that these innovative reef interventions have most attributes, they present most attributes of emerging technologies, particularly novelty. So innovative reef interventions may fulfill a given function using a different base principle as compared to what was used before to achieve a similar purpose. They are relatively fast, they have a relatively fast development, and they feature high levels of uncertainty and ambiguity. So in this context of emerging technology, key challenges arise in terms of scope and depth of the existing policy in regulatory frameworks. Scope refers here to the capacity to address new and emerging issues in reef management, and depth, the effectiveness in ensuring that risks are reduced and benefits are realized. So we assume that there is in terms of existing regulatory frameworks addressing innovative interventions, we assume that there is a misfit. It creates a misfit with the introduction of innovation here. And the misfit is around the scope and depth. So another key issue is how to avoid, as Rachel was presenting previously, how to avoid unreasonable regulatory barriers while we ensure protection for the environment and society. So how we can, we have a goal, we developed innovative solutions at the same time that we ensure that risks are identified, managed, and mitigated. So that's a big question. And this requires innovative approaches to governance. So in this context, we consider here anticipatory regulation, which proposes a governance framework for emerging technologies or emerging innovations. It comprises three approaches. advisory, adaptive, and anticipatory. So the triple A. The advisory approach aims to help reef interventions adhere to existing policy and regulation. So this approach involves limited changes to or nearly no changes to existing policy and regulation. Rather, the goal here is to assist reef scientists in adapting interventions to existing frameworks. So the advisory approach involves engagement, basically between regulators and reef scientists. So options to operationalize the advisory approach includes, for example, information sharing about proposed interventions with regulators. It may involve meetings and workshops where reef scientists can present information and clarify issues or doubts about interventions. Also, pre-lodgement permit application meetings where regulators and scientists discuss assessment requirements and other conditions for testing and or deployment of interventions. Also, joint risk assessment, another example of an option to operationalize this advisory approach. The joint risk assessment, where regulators and scientists discuss risks and risk mitigation and management, considering the existing risk assessment framework. So overall, these options help regulators to develop an appropriate understanding of the interventions and how they may be adapted to meet existing regulatory requirements. However, the advisory approach will not fully enable development of activities associated with many of the reef interventions. This is because existing policy and regulatory frameworks were not designed, as mentioned before, to address innovative reef interventions. So we move to the other approach. The adaptive approach aims to support the development of reef interventions by adapting the existing policy and regulatory frameworks. This approach may include updating and/or creating new policies and regulations. In this regard, such policies and regulations should be flexible to ensure that they can adapt to ongoing changes as part of the development, testing, and deployment of reef risk interventions. And this requires a better understanding of what interventions entail and the identification of regulatory barriers. The advisory approach involves, in addition to regulators and scientists, a range of other relevant stakeholders. So options here to operationalize this approach may include stakeholder engagement. There is inclusive. Such engagement can help develop fit-for-purpose regulations and policies, achieve credibility, and harness new ideas and knowledge. Early engagement is important for building stakeholder trust and acceptance, particularly where knowledge of restoration and adaptation interventions is limited among stakeholders. It can also enable stakeholders to build consensus around the development and deployment of those interventions in a way that addresses public concerns and improves acceptability.
Pedro, this is your timekeeper. You've got 1.5 minutes left.
All right, I'll hurry up. So then we move to the anticipatory approach. The goal here is to iteratively develop policy and regulations. This is based on the understanding of how reef interventions will impact the GBR in society, and in this context, understand potential regulatory needs. I'll have to be very short here. I was thinking of 15 minutes, but so operationalizing this approach involves a number of principles that you can see in the screen. I won't be able to go over all of them, but I just wanted to provide examples of, for example, future-facing principle. So these include, for example, group bumper interventions policy, which recognize the need to update in future, as new information comes to light. Also, the bumper policy and planning roadmap itself is very forward-facing and assesses current policy relative to how they need to be in the future. And to conclude, I just want to say that moving towards anticipatory approaches can be very challenging, and in terms of having the adequate resources, new capacities and tools, and also in dealing with complexity in terms of environmental, political, and social complexity. And I'll end there. Thank you.